Hi, and welcome to Creating Cadence, a podcast for life and work in motion. I'm your host, Mich Bondesio, a writer, coach, consultant, and solo entrepreneur. It's my aim to help high achievers stuck on the treadmill of overwork to transform how they approach life, work, and business. So, lovely people, it's been a while. How on earth are you? This is episode 44, and it's another in-between episode in the lead-up to the launching of Season 8 of the Creating Cadence podcast, which is finally due out in September 2023. I'm so sorry to say I haven't published an episode since March of this year, and it's now August as I record this, but I wanted to update you on my news as quite a lot has changed this year, which also explains why the podcast was on hiatus for so long. I originally planned to be publishing regular recordings of my newsletter this year, but there are several reasons why that hasn't happened. For those of you who are new to the podcast, you see, I published my first book, The Cadence Effect, in May 2023. It's all about how we can transform our lives through intentionally productive habits, and you can check out the book at thecadenceeffect.com. I'll share the link in the show notes if you're interested. So since May, it's been a wild and fun roller coaster on my new book publishing journey, but a roller coaster nonetheless. I found I just didn't have the time, energy, or emotional capacity to be publishing the podcast alongside promoting the book and dealing with all the new things I have to do as part of being a newly minted, self-published author who happens to also be publishing wide, which means across many platforms. Bear in mind the podcast and the book are currently not my main forms of income, so they are technically side projects until they earn their keep. And as such, they also have to fit into a framework that helps me to manage my energy and support my well-being. This is, after all, what I'm advocating for through the podcast and through my coaching and writing work. To remind you of my focus, it's for us all to become more intentional and purposeful with our productivity, so that we can create better cadence in our days and craft more meaningful lives. And what do I mean by cadence? Well, it's all about creating a better rhythm, pace, or flow in our work and in our lives so that we can activate more of our potential in everything that we do. But there's more. I'm also on a mission to help us change the conversation around how we work, to overthrow this toxic culture of overwork that is the norm, so that we can find better ways to work that support our well-being and creativity better too. To this end, and in the upcoming season of the podcast, I'll be interviewing a series of movers, shakers, and high achievers from my network about what creating cadence means to them. We'll be looking at how they leverage cadence in their own lives, as well as considering how what they do for work might help their customers, clients, or audience to do the same in their own special way. So in the first episode of the new season, I'll introduce my guests. As part of this season, you lucky listeners will also get to hear me read an excerpt from my book, The Cadence Effect, because the book is, after all, what is guiding the conversations for this season, and potentially for future seasons ahead too. Aside from the book, there have been some other changes in my business which are tied to the publishing of the book. Previously, my coaching business was called Growth Sessions, and I used this brand name for 5 years. But as Cadence has progressed, both as a podcast and as a newsletter, for which I recently published the 75th edition, it's also become clear that Cadence is the brand under which I want all of my work and creative projects to reside. So to that end, Growth Sessions has become assimilated into the Cadence brand. My service offerings have also changed. I'm doing more paid public speaking engagements, talks and workshops, all connected to topics from the book, such as burnout, digital wellness, and intentional productivity. I also have a private coaching cohort planned, linked to the topics of the book, and that will be launching early next year. I'll be talking about this during this season of the podcast, so you'll get a good idea about what it involves. So I recently wrote about creating the space for magic in the 75th edition of my Cadence newsletter, where I also shared my learnings from 5 years of writing this newsletter. As part of my journey towards making space for magic, all of these different projects and things I'm creating are connected. They are the building blocks that create the strong foundations for doing more intentional work and creating a more meaningful life. For me, what that looks like is developing a business ecosystem that encompasses being an author, coach, entrepreneur, and professional speaker, and which also gives me the freedom to do this work from anywhere so that I can support both me and my family better. This is the magic I'm seeking to both create and to wield. As a creator, I'm building things one slow step at a time. I'm intentionally doing things slowly because that's what my health and well-being demands. And a lot of what I'm doing is also not technically scalable, but that doesn't matter to me because my magic outcome is focused on purpose first. Profit is simply part of my triple bottom line. It cannot exist if I can't support my people and the planet too. What I've also learned from creating over the last 5 years is that time becomes irrelevant. I've learned to see beyond the numbers and not to chase them. For me, it's the skill building and the human connection and community that comes from being involved in these projects that matters more. Whatever things you're working to build, decide what matters most from a purpose perspective. What is the magic for you? Brick by brick, we build the foundations for the magic to happen. So if you're just starting out on your creator journey, keep the magic in mind while slowly you chip away at the journey and the means to make your magic shine. And with that, I'll end off by encouraging you to stay tuned for the new season of the Creating Cadence podcast, coming out in September 23. I'm incredibly fortunate to be having lovely people on the show. There are connections who I've learned so much from, and I'm sure you will too. So thanks again for listening. Until next time, keep moving forwards with courage, curiosity, and cadence. Bye for now.